Okay, so in this class, we are going to design the testing strategies for our Mule application. So this is our goal basically. Okay, so let me go and let me say blue pen. So this is our goal. So we'll talk about in this session we'll be talking about why our application needs the testing. Okay, and what all is involved in this testing and what it helps. So basically why that questions will answer in this session. Okay, so the goal is you'll be having a Mule application. We'll be writing the test cases for that, and we'll be running those test cases successfully. And after you run this test cases, it will show you that how much you are covering your code. Okay, and one beautiful thing about the UI is whatever components we are executing as part of, or whatever components are reachable as part of the test cases, those will be visible in the UI in our flow itself, right? So the goal is clear. So why we need so we need to understand that why. Okay, and then identify what all tools are available. So whether any tools are provided by the MuleSoft itself, we need to understand those, and then we need to write our strategies. So for testing our Mule application, we need to write, and we need to write this strategy in such a way that it should go, greater than 80% of your code coverage. So obviously, it's good if you are 100% code coverage, but this is expected. This is good to have. Okay, this is expected. So we'll define the strategy. We'll write a strategy in such a way that my code coverage will maximize it. Okay. So once you after this session, we'll be able to do that. And first question we'll try to answer why application needs the testing, right? So this is the application I have. Why I need the testing first of all, right? So answer, very simple answer to that question is to find the problems early in the deployment cycle and fix them quickly. Second answer could be to minimize the risk for the developers for a future, right? If you don't test this code, untested code, there is a myth, or there's a saying, untested code is a broken code. Nobody will accept it, right? So test it, find the problem early, fix them quickly, and makes the life of developers easy, risk free. Okay, that's what the testing needed. Okay, so there has to be a comprehensive test suite for relevant test cases for each Mule project to make sure to ensure the consistent, predictable, and reliable deployment. Okay, and this has to be decided by the architect. So all these design strategies has to be decided by the architect and developer to write it. Now we'll talk about what kind of strategies we have in MuleSoft, for a Mule application. Okay, so let me quickly take my whiteboard, and then we'll talk about those strategies. So we have something called unit testing. Okay, so when we talked about testing strategy, first comes is unit testing. A unit testing is something, it verifies the functionality of specific unit. So let's say your flow only, okay, or your subflow. That is what the unit testing means. Then comes the integration testing. Integration testing, and this verifies all interaction to and from interacting systems, whether they are functional or not. It will test the actual messages, requests, responses exchanged within the external system. Then third comes is your performance test. Performance testing. So hope I'm clear. This will be all focusing on our flow, subflows, right? The integration testing will be focusing on interactions, interaction to and from interacting systems, interacting systems, and it will be focusing on messages, request, and responses. And performance is the name itself says that it will measure, validate, or verify performance characteristics of the system, like capacity, response time, scalability, reliability, blah blah blah. Okay, under a specific, or different workloads, it will try to test that. Okay, so it will be focusing on the response time, reliability, how reliable your application is on specific reliability, scalability, how scalable your solution is under a specific load, under specific situation, specific scenario, specific loads. Okay, so our focus is today on unit testing because that's what the developer responsibility. So unit testing will be done in dev environment. Integration testing will be done in QA environment. Okay, so whether all the systems are interacting properly or not, what kind of messages are getting exchanged between the systems, that we can easily see in the QA environment. So in QA environment, will be a proper setup. We'll be actually hitting the external systems and getting the response from there. We'll be actually sending the request to the target systems. Performance testing is very important. Performance testing, when you say performance, that means you need to have an environment which is identical to prod environment. Same kind of infrastructure has to be there. Same kind of workload has to be there. Then only you can tell some numbers, right? Those number has to be taken from an environment which is identical to the production. But we can't go to the production and test something, right? That is a real environment. So what we do, we create an environment, something called UAT, somebody called SIT. So we'll be having a UAT environment, which is called user acceptance test environment. Okay, so we'll be having, that's why we will be having different environments, right? And that's where we test our code, and then we'll decide whether to release this code to the production or not, right? So that's how the Mule testing or Mule applications testing strategies are important. Okay, am I clear so far?
Yep.
Okay, let's look at now. I have designed a specific flow forward testing. So we'll go ahead and look at those flows first. What all things we have. So I have two flows, multiple route flow. Here we'll be seeing the scatter gather, we'll be seeing HTTP request, we'll be seeing error handling, and we'll be having choice router here. Okay. And then I have a simple flow where I'll be testing the simple hello payload, and then I'll be testing whatever payload you send. Okay, so we'll very simple flow. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So now the one more point I was discussing here, what all tools are available for this testing. So MuleSoft provides a tool called Munit, which is which is automatically or out of the box, or we can say embedded inside our Anypoint Studio itself, and this will be Mavenized. So it will be it is actually Mavenized unit testing. Okay, that's how we call it Munit. Okay, so whenever we want to write a test cases, there are two modules. Okay, we have two modules called let's go ahead to the studio itself and look at this. Okay. So right now the project is fresh. No test cases we have written. Okay. So the folder structure, project folder structures, we are very clear. The business logic will be there inside this folder, still here main resources. And once the test started, right, these three folders are three class paths are responsible for testing strategy. Okay. So let's go ahead and first try to see the first test case. So we'll go ahead and try to open the test first. So I'll say right click on our flow. So we have multiple options here. Okay. So let me talk about those two options. So we can create manually, or we can use the Munit test recorder. So let me talk about that option, which is let's go to okay. So we have two options to write the test cases. Definitely we'll be using Munit. This is the tool provided by MuleSoft itself. Provided by MuleSoft. Okay. Inside this, we have two modules, Munit itself and Munit tools. Under Munit, we'll be having all scopes, and here we'll be having all operations. What are operations we'll be having here? We'll be having operations like mock vein, we'll be having verify, we'll be having spy. We'll discuss what all these operations means. Okay. In the scopes, we'll be having scopes like before test, after test, before test, test suite, after test suite, and there will be something one more called test. These scopes will be there. Apart from this, we'll be having something called set event and set null event. This will be there in Munit only. Null payload or something like that. So one module will be having scopes, one module will be having all the tools. And we'll see where all we'll use these tools. Okay, why we need mock vein, why we need verify, why we need spy. And there will be operations which are like assertion. There are multiple types of assertions we have. We'll talk about all those things. Okay. So when we are talking about writing test cases, we can go with manual approach. So manual approach is there, and we have something called test recorder. So in test recorder, what happens? It first run your flow for a specific scenario. And in test recorder, you can write a test case for only one flow. Okay, only for one flow. Keep in mind, we cannot combine 2-3 flows in one shot and say that, hey, run the flow and give me the test case. No. So test recorder, what it does, it runs a flow for a specific test case, and it captures all in and out, what is coming to the processor and what is going out of that processor. Whatever processes are involved in that test case scenario, all in and out messages are captured by this test recorder. And then based on those incoming and outgoing messages, we can configure our test. Is that clear? Run and capture the results of each and every processor involved in that scenario. Am I clear so far? For example, if I go to my scenario, this one. So if I run this flow, this processor will be involved. But if I go to my multiple routes flow, if I go to choice router, if I'm running this, if I pass the payload is equal to hello, only this processor, this and this three will be executed. So only for these three guys, okay, in and out will be captured. Not not for this, not for this, because for at any point of time I'll be able to execute only one path from the choice router, right?
Yes.
Okay. So those things will be captured, and those incoming and outgoing results will be stored as a DWL file, and those files will be stored under test resources directory under here. So we'll see that option also. So we can write manually also. We can write by using test recorder. Okay, so let's go ahead. First, we'll go to simple flow. Okay, and I'll say, hey boss, give me the test case for this. So what you can do, you can say right click and go to Munit option here and create blank test, this option, or go to the file new, and under new, what you can say, new, under this you'll see Munit test. This will be completely empty. I'll show you the difference between this guy and this guy. Right click in creating, so it will
Okay.
automatically relate that test with this flow. But if I go with this option, file new and Munit, this will be completely empty. You can relate to any flow. Okay. So let's go with this flow first option. The moment I say create a test case for me, blank test case for me, what happens? There'll be two modules added in my palette automatically. Have a look at it. Two modules are added. See here, Munit module and Munit tools module. This is what we're talking about. So now in Munit, see here, all the scopes are there. After suit, after test, before suit, before test, and test. Now what all these things are? Okay, so let me quickly take one by one. Okay, so we are talking about Munit, okay, module. Here we are seeing before and after. In before we have suit and we have test. In after also same thing, and then finally we have one more test scope called test. Before suit, suit is nothing but set of or collection of tests. So if you want to assign something for set of tests, then we can go to the before suit scope and assign something over there, initialize something over there, something like objects that you want to initialize for set of this test. You can go ahead and use the scope called before suit. So if I draw something like that, it will be before suit. Under there, I'll be having test, test. So if I initialize objects over here, let's say 10, this 10 will be available for this test also, this test also. This is like my test 1, this is test 2. And then finally at the after test suit, I say object store is equal to 0 here. This is before suit and after suit. Hope that is clear. Then we have before test and after test. What happens here? I'll be saying object store is equal to 11, and then here at the end I'll say object store is equal to 0. So this object store 1, object store 1, this won't be available for my test 2. This boundary is specific to this test. So every test will be assigning 11. So this test also will assign 11, and this test for every test, the object store will be assigned and then assigned or clear at the end for every test. Now this object store, which is global, it will initialize only once. That means before suit and after suit will be executed only once. Before test and after test will be executed for each and every test. So if I write a statement in before suit, before something, right? So that will be executed only once. Only once. If I write something in the before test, that will get executed for every test. This has to be very, very clear, okay? After shoot will be executed only once at the end. After test will be executed for every test at the end. Okay, once that test is executed, that after test will get executed. Before and after is clear. The test scope will give you empty test. You can go ahead and configure your test scenario there.
Okay.
Okay. So when we say test scope, right, you'll be getting 3 sections empty over here. One is execution, one is behavior, and third one is validation. Behavior section will take the high priority, one. Execution will take in second priority, and third priority given to the validation. In the behavior section, we can set the event, Mule event. Two more things we can do here. We can use a mock when here, and we can set it here spy. In the execution sections, we'll be hitting flow reference, because we'll be triggering the flow for which I have written this test case. So in the section execution, we'll be actually triggering the flow. Once your flow is triggered, it will generate some output. That output or that response will be validating over here, either via assert operations or verify operations. Two things. So here we'll be adding asserts or verify. Two things will be adding over in this third section. Okay. Now let's go ahead and try to understand what is mock when. Okay. And spy. So mock when is something. Okay. Our complete focus is on unit testing, right? So I wanted to check my box only. Let's say from my box, I am doing one external call. External call. I don't need to worry about whether this external system is working or not. I should always assume that this is working fine. So whichever processor is calling this external call, during that execution, we should say, hey, when you're executing this, you don't go and hit that external call or external system. You take the output from here itself, from me. I know what the response coming from there. So I wanted to avoid this complete external call, this network call. So which operation will help me? Mock when. So mock when will ask, hey, which processor you want to configure? So we'll be giving idea of that processor. And then once that is identified during the execution, we'll be saying that, okay, mock this guy, and then take this payload from me. Whatever I'll configure, that you take it from me. Don't go and hit that external system or target system. Don't go. Okay. So no external call. Is that clear? That is our mock when.
Okay.
Okay. Second, we have spy. So let's say this is my flow. I have one processor, and this processor is making change to my payload. Okay. So basically, it's changing my event. Now I want to really see what was changed and what is actually received. So let's say this is P1 and this is P2, because this payload is getting changed during this time, right? Whatever I'm doing here. So I want to see, okay, I want to verify. P1 has to be this. Let's say P1, I want to validate. P1 has to be X. And when I execute the P1 over here, it should become Y. This is what the test scenario. So this processor should receive X, and this should generate Y. So for example, let's say this processor is multiplying each and every item, whatever is coming. So if I am getting 10, the output should be 20, no other value. That is what I am focusing here. So if I send input as a 10, the P1 has to be 10 and P2 has to be 20. And this thing we can validate by using spy operation, right? This is what coming from the actual, we'll be putting spy on someone, right? So he will be monitoring that guy continuously, where he's going, what he's doing, what he's eating, where he's going, right? All those things will be monitored by spying guy, right? That is one thing. Then we have something called verify call. Verify. Okay. Now verify call means what? Whether this processor was executed or not. I am expecting for a specific test case, this processor has to be triggered. Now, how I make sure that for this test case, this processor was executed or not? Yeah, definitely I can go and that check that tick mark, but I don't know to do that. I want to automate all these things. So I'll go ahead and say, hey, verify. I'll give ID and how many times you're expecting to get executed. If it is under some firewall rule, for loop, if you're expecting this get executed multiple times, right, based on your count, that count you can mention. Or if you're executing only once, say once, only once. The verify call will do that job for us. Mock when is clear, verify is clear, spy is clear. Any questions over here?
No.
Then we have something. So now we have executed this. So it will generate some payload. Now I want to verify this payload. I wanted to say that, hey, payload has to be X. Once all the execution is done, my payload should be X, or payload should be not null. Something has to be come out of this. If that something is coming, that has to be X. It should be not null. It should be X. Now how I'll do this? So we have asserts option. So we'll asserts operation. Okay, so we have asserts operation. Now during this session, we'll try to use all these operations and different scenarios. Am I clear so far?
Yes.
Let's go ahead and have a look at it. So I have right click, remember, and I said create a empty test for me, right? And
Yeah.
it's automatically, link that flow with my test case. Now you see here, I have behavior section here, see?
Yeah.
And you can see there, it's actually disable. It's a information for us. Add mocks here, spy here. Now, if I go to Munit tools, you can find all the operations here. See, assert equal, assert expression, assert that, mock when, we have verify call and spy, right? Now, can I drag this spy inside validation? See, it's not
No.
allowed. Can I drag it here? No, it's only allowed over here.
Okay.
So for each operation, there is a section already predefined. We cannot force a specific operation in a specific section. No way. It's already predefined, and that is what the compiler or interpreter understand, right?
Yeah, it is clearly saying that add assert.
Yes. Okay. Now let's go ahead and look at the first thing. So what I'm going to test here. So we are going to test the hello payload, and if you look at my simple flow, okay. So what I'm testing here, I'm expecting once this flow is executed, my message should be this. Okay, message should be this. Let's copy this and go ahead here under my simple test suite. Okay, here, and which component can do that job for me? Okay,
Assert sir?
assert equals. Okay, so I'll go ahead and drag assert equal over here. Okay.
Okay.
Hey, just a second, I'm getting a call. Just a second. So let's continue. We are going to what we are going to assert that. So the simple flow, if I trigger that flow, it will execute, it will generate some payload, and that payload we are going to assert here. So finally, what will be the payload? That will come over here. Sorry, it has to be control space. So that this is the payload, actual payload will be generated. And what we're expecting, if you go here, I'll simply say control V. This is what we're expecting, right? Clear? And if this is not matching, we'll generate a message over here saying that payload was not the or not as expected. Right? Clear? So let's go ahead and save this. Save everything. And if I run this now, I can go ahead and run Munit test suite here, or better way to go ahead and run this Munit from here. So this, if I go with this option, this will run all the test suites and it will give a complete coverage report. If I run like this, only it will run the current active Munit test wherever I'm in, right? That test suite will run. It won't give you complete code coverage. If you have multiple test suites, right? It run only one test suite. So better go ahead, right click on the project, go to Munit and run the test. Okay, so it will go ahead, it will go and trigger only this flow right now.
Okay.
Okay, and it will generate the payload. That payload it will be verified here and compare with the value, the static value which we are kept it as the expected value. If it is not matching, it will throw that error. So we'll see that scenario also. Okay. So if you look at right now, it's running. So you'll get these tabs, Munit error tabs, and Munit coverage tab. Okay, so here all three things will be there. So my test kit ran, green means happy. Okay. If it is not happy, the color will be different. Munit error is empty because we don't have any error. Coverage report, it says 10% only because I'm running only one flow at a time. Okay. And this test suite is only covering that flow. That's the reason we are able to see only 10% coverage. Go ahead and generate report. We can generate the report also. Have a look at it. So we have two flows, but the second flow we are not running at all. And in this flow also, we are only running these two processors. These processors we are not running. Okay, so it will clearly show you the, if I go to my simple flow, you'll be able to see green tick over here. And other flows, you won't see any green tick. So as part of that test suite or whatever test we are running right now, only these two processes are getting executed or reachable by that test case from entire application. That's the reason coverage report is showing only 10% of coverage. Am I clear so far?
Yes, got it. Yeah.
Now let's go ahead and little bit change here. Let's say I'm expecting hello Munit, and now if I run the test, so let's save this and look at this scenario now. Okay, so run test. So actually our flow is generating hello Munit, but we are saying, hey, I'm expecting hello Munit 1. Now it will clearly generate a error for Munit test case. So test case will fail. Now this time the green color won't come over here. Okay.
Yep.
Now see, it's not happy. Okay, so that's the reason. Let's look at the Munit error. So go ahead and select this guy. This is a test. See here what's happening. Expected is this. Okay, as a string, and what we are receiving, but we got this. Clear, right? It will clearly show you that this is the assertion failing.
payload was not as expected. But
Yeah,
that's
coverage rate was still 10% because we are running, right?
yeah.
Okay.
And as well, message is also there.
Yeah. So let's remove this one from here.
Mhm.
Okay. Save everything. Okay. Now let's look at the other part of our testing. So now, so this is one. Okay. Now second, we'll go to the routers now. Simple flow. I don't know to add. We'll see that later. Okay. So if I want to add few more test cases, we'll go ahead and do that. So this is done. This is closed. Now, so we have multiple flows here. So let's look at the first flow. Okay. So what I'm going to do now, I'm not going to go and write the test manually. I'm going to go and say that, hey, go ahead and give me a test case. Right click, Munit. This time you give me a test case by using test recorder. Now this guy will build our project. Okay, this guy will deploy our project on a Mule server, and it will ask us to go ahead and trigger this flow from outside. Now we'll be triggering that flow. Once we trigger the flow, all input and output of each processes will get captured, and it will generate the DW script for us. Based on those DW scripts, we can configure our test. Okay, let's have a look at it. So now second way of writing test case we are looking at by using a Munit test recorder. Now see, we have this configure test gray right now. I'll go ahead and I'll trigger the path from outside. So I'll go ahead and I say, hey, go ahead and say http //localhost running on 8081 slash testing slash scatter gather. Hope this is the correct path. I'm trigger it. So 165, have a look at it. So now if I go back to my flow now, 123 plus 42, that is 165. That is what I'm expecting from this flow. But now have a look at it. The recording stopped. Now it's giving me option to configure the test. Now let me show you what I wanted to capture here. Okay. So let me go this side. Just okay. So what I want to configure here, I want to configure, I wanted to see, hey, spy on this. Okay, so after executing this processor, okay, 123 processor, value has to be 123. After this payload, 42, the value has to be 42. That I wanted to check, okay? And then I want to assert the payload. So entire output has to be 165. That is what I wanted to check. And then I wanted to check whether root 0 is executed or not, root 1 is executed or not. Okay, these three things I want to do. Spy on these two processors, verify on these two paths. I wanted to make sure that both the paths are getting executed or not, and final output is 165 or not. That I wanted to check. Am I clear so far?
Yes. I
Let's go
was
ahead. And the test name is scatter gather test. Say next. Now you see here the scatter gather. So we'll go ahead and say root 0. Verify this processor is triggered or not. Verify root. And I'll say exactly 1. I'm expecting exactly 1. Okay. At most, at least no. I want exactly 1. Then root 1. Check whether this is executed or not. 123 will put a spy and not on before, after it has to be 123. Okay, now 42 on that guy also will say spy not before, after. I am expecting 42. Then calculate the sum. I wanted to check. It has to be, after calculate, it has to be 165, not before. Okay. Now this is what I want. Let's go ahead and let's see how my test looks like. The next, this is a UI problem. It's not getting loaded properly here, but it will give you the clear picture once you get the test case. Now have a look at it. What did I say? Okay. So if you look at here, the payload, it's generating all the DW script. Let me show you the DW script first. Under source test resources, the folder got created for that particular test, and see all the, see here, one of the script is checking 165. First, initially we are setting attributes. Those are coming from the postman, if you remember. Right? All these things are coming from postman. Those are captured under this set hyphen event underscore attributes DWL. Then we have set event. We are not setting any event. In the postman, we didn't set anything, just a get request. So it will be always empty. Then payload. This payload, which is checking 165. This payload will be checking 123. This payload will be checking 42. Am I clear so far? Everything is captured as a DWL file, and these are getting referred inside our processors. You will have a look at it.
If we run it again, so how it will be? It will create the new scatter
Yeah,
point.
it will create new test. Okay, new DW script, everything. You just,
Okay.
it will simply create new folder here.
Okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, so let me close all these things. Since wanted to show you how it looks, all our DW script. I'll come back to my flow, and now I'll be running. So see, all the verify calls are coming over here. All the spy calls are coming over here. Okay, and if I run this now, let's go ahead and not file. Right click on project. Right click. Go to Munit and run the test. Hope am I clear now? We have seen both ways of creating a test. One was manual. Right click on a flow and go and add the whatever expected test scenario you are looking for. Now I have two test scopes, right? The test suite. One is for simple flow test suite and multiple root suite right now. And the way I am running right now, all the test suites will be triggered, will get executed. Now whatever test you have, so both are running now. See, and now if you look at the MUnit coverage, it's 45% now. Increased, right?
Yeah, from 10 to 40.
Okay. There are no errors. That's fine. That's very good. So now let's go ahead and look for one more test suite now. Okay. Now this time, what I wanted to do, if you look at, let's close this. Let's close this. I don't want anything from here. Multiple routes. Okay. So now if you look at, see all green marks. Now look at it. So that means all the processes from here got triggered during that test. Okay. This is also triggered. And if I go to simple flow, there also we have triggered these two guys. Right now, these two are not getting executed. I intentionally am not executing those right now. Now let's focus on the flow number 2, this one. So right click and say create a test for me. And this time we are not going to trigger a record. We know right how it works. This time I'll say give me empty. Okay. Now let's go ahead and look at this guy. Now what we are going to test here. Let me first tell you. Okay. So this is done. Now I am doing a outgoing call from here. Let me show you. So first I'm logging it here. Simple logger. Okay. About to call out to web server. and we are calling web server, very simple web server is www.mulesoft.com. Okay. So this will return us a web page of MuleSoft website, homepage of that. And then we'll be saying that, hey, the status code is this. So if the home page is rendered successfully, or if you receive the response from the MuleSoft.com web server, the status code will be 200, right? So let's test the status code. Okay, so let me go ahead and configure that in my scenario. Okay, so now to test the status code, I don't need to configure anything in my behavior section, right? I'll go to my unit tools. We'll try to use all asserts operation. Let's see how those are different from each other. So I have 3. Okay, so let's say assert equal. In assert equal, I wanted to check the status. Where the status will be attributes dot, if I say, sorry, dot status code. This is what I'm expecting. And this has to be, sometime I'll tell you, okay, sometime we generally go ahead and type like this. Okay, now this will create a problem. Okay, this will be considered as a string, and this guy will be returning a number. This test case will fail. I'll intentionally do this and I'll show you. Okay, then we'll fix it. I'll intentionally put this here.
Okay.
Let me go ahead and run it and let me show you. Okay, let's go ahead and save everything, and let's try to run this test case only. Oh, run this, so it will be a little faster. It will fail, but by looking at the code, it looks very simple, right? It says that, hey, I'm going to compare the status code with 200. This is not a problem with my flow. It's a problem with my test case. Okay, that's how I look at it. It's only running this test suite, okay, because I ran like this, right click and test suite. So in whichever test suite you are, only that test suite will be triggered. Now see, what is the error? Only have a look at it. Go here, okay, go here and say, look at the error. What it says, have a look at it, very clear. Expected at string 200, but what we got? 200 as a number. Now how generally we do this mistake, right? If you see really right now, you won't see any error. Okay, so now we need to do this. Save this. Okay, I don't want to test it now. Okay, we'll test it together. So now let's go ahead and drag expression now. Now expression, what it says, hey, whatever payload we are getting, that should not be null. Not be null. Okay, yes, assertion. So if it is executed successfully, definitely I will receive some HTML thing from that web server, and that will get rendered on my web page on in browser, right?
Yeah.
Third one, we'll say assert that. Let's see, have a look at it, what it says. Okay, so we are saying not null. So this time, what I'm going to check here is, I'll check reason phrase. And what is that reason phrase means? If you go to the postman, right? Beside the status code, whatever is there, right? That is reason phrase. So what I want to test here, I want to test the reason phrase and say that it should not be null. Okay, so where I can find that, I can go here and I can say attributes control space dot reason phrase. It will be okay, it will be internal server error, or it will be bad request, or blah blah blah. So what I'm saying is reason phrase here, it should not be null. Okay, and if it is a null, I say blank region phrase. Okay, there's a failure message, will get it if it is a null. Not null, that is a true scenario. Okay, success scenario. Okay, let's go ahead and say save, and I'll go to my project, right click and say Munit. This time my code coverage will be increased. But if it is okay scenario, what will happen? This part won't get executed. Okay, so we'll try to cover this part also, so that I'll get more code coverage. So right now only three processes are getting executed, and you remember these are coming from the last test case run. Okay, not from this. Right now our test cases are not run. Those are getting prepared. All three will be executed, and all three will be green. So first one is green, second one is green, third one is green now. And now if you look at the code coverage, see, it's close 60. Awesome, right? Yeah, how to execute this processor? Because this processor will get executed only when if anything goes wrong here, right? But I don't have any, I don't want to go and change my code. Really, during test, you should not go and change the code, okay?
We can use.
You actually need to test the code, whatever is there. For your test scenario, don't go and change the code, okay? Now, how can you achieve that? Okay, so now one operation from a Munit tool will help us. What is that operation? Now let's have a look at it. Okay, I'll go ahead and do that. Okay, let's do that for you. So if I go ahead here, Munit tools definitely will go ahead and say empty test. Give me empty test, and go to the favorites and go to the flow reference. Which flow we are going to trigger? This one also I'm manually showing you. Okay, error handler for HTTP call. This flow. Let me show you the name. Okay, which flow we are going to call? Error handler for HTTP call. This flow. Now let's come back to our test suite. Okay, here. Now this flow is configured. That means this test will trigger that flow only. Fine.
Let's see.
What I'm going to do now. I'm going to say mock when. Go here, mock when. Okay. Now mock when, what it will do? Hey, which processor you want to mock? Tell me. How we are going to do? Pick that processor. How to pick that processor? Okay. Now every processor, let me show you clearly. Let it keep it here. Every processor will have unique ID. Which processor you are going to trigger from here? Have a look at it. Which flow? Multiple routes, yeah, error handling HTTP, and get the MuleSoft home page. Now, if you click once, right, it won't show anything. We need to somehow double click on this. Okay, on this, whichever processor you are selecting, if you select once, it won't show anything. We need to double click on it. Now, every processor in a flow will have unique ID. So I can say, go ahead and select this ID. That's enough. Doc name also you can give, go ahead, but the doc ID is enough to identify that processor. Now that processor is selected. Now see here. Now what actually I want to generate an error. And what is the error type? Let's go ahead. Anyway, it's save everything. Let me show you first. Go down here. It's any. So whatever error I generate from there, it will be captured over here. Okay, since it is any. So let's go back and let's have a look at it. What kind of error I'm going to trigger it from here. So I'll say something like customize error. So in mock when we are going to trigger the error, and where is my flow? Just come back here. Down, okay, yeah, error, okay, and here I'll say mocked colon. This style we need to follow, and this is how the first one will be the namespace. Yeah, it has to be mocked, right? Mocked error. Cause, I don't want to give any cause over here. Simply mocked error. Now, when if there is an error, right, then I won't be getting any payload. So what I can add in the validation section, I can say verify call. You go ahead and verify whether this guy is triggered or not. After triggering it, it may generate error or something like that is fine. But let's go ahead and check, verify whether the processor was executed or not. Pick the processor. Again, I'll get a pop-up. Go here. Okay, which processor you're talking about? No scatter gather, error, and this processor, right? Double click, select again doc ID, go ahead and say done. Okay, validate, and I'm seeing exactly once is equal to, go here and say 1. I think this is fine. If I say 1, this is fine, no problem. This time it considers the string also. So now I have written a test case where I'll be mimicking or simulating the error scenario. How? Actually, my www.mulesoft.com is up, but by the help of mockvein, I am simulating a scenario where www.mulesoft.com is down or having some problem. That scenario I am simulating with the help of this mockvein. Save everything, right click, go ahead to the Munit. Hope you are clear.
Yes.
Now I'll get more code coverage because I'm going to cover one more processor now. So I'll drag an outline also here. So I have enough space now. A minute. We are running all two test suits, and I'll be having now 4 tests, right? All are run, and if you see the coverage report note, 65%. It was 60 last time, and now it is 65%. Okay, let's have a look at our flows now. See, this guy is triggered now. Okay, my scatter gather is done. My this guy is done. Now look at this guy. This is a choice router. Okay. Now if I want to cover this processor, this processor, this processor, this processor, this processor, actually I need to write 3 test cases. And those 3 test cases will be kind of similar, identical. Yes, I can configure one, then copy paste second, then copy paste third. And in one test case, I'll say payload is equal to hello. In second test case, I'll say payload is equal to goodbye. And in third payload, I'll say just empty, okay, or null. It will come to this guy. So once I'll execute those 3 tests, all the processor from this flow will get covered. I don't want to do that. Okay, clearly I don't want to do that. I don't want to write. Let's say today I have only 3 paths here, right? Let's say tomorrow I have 10 paths here. I'm not going to write those 10 test cases manually. I'll write one test case and I'll say that, okay, run this test case for different input. For different input. Let me show you that. That Munit test case, we call it parameterized Munit testing. That is advanced concept, but I'm going to cover this here. Okay. Generally, I cover that in architect course, but here we'll go ahead and cover that. Choice of 3 paths. Let's go ahead. So let's look at my resources folder here, source test resources. I have created one file for you. Let me show you clearly. So this parameterized file, don't confuse with the properties file. Okay, these are not properties. Okay, these are actually tests. So hello is one test, goodbye is one test, and default is one test. And for this test, I'm passing this input. For this test, I'm passing this input, and for this test, I'm passing this input. Clear? Other than hello and goodbye, it will go to default. So these are the 3 test case. These are 3 inputs. Now I need to create one test. Okay, so I'll go ahead inside my flow. Yes, minimize this. Or okay, I'll drag here itself. Go ahead, Munit empty test over here. Okay, or what I'll do is I'll create separate. Okay, so right click on our flow right click on this guy and say create test. Okay, so save. Yeah, others I'm saving it. So I got it here. See, no, not here. Sorry. What happened? Something happened. I don't know. Did I run the Munit test recorder? Looks like that. I'm extremely sorry. Okay. Yeah. Cancel. Sometimes it creates a problem. Okay. Okay. Right. Clear. Munit. Instead of this, I click this, I guess. Okay. So I got the empty test case over here. Now let's have a look at it. Okay. How we can configure it very carefully. Okay. Very important concept. Sometime we'll get confused. So we'll set the event first here. Okay. Because my flow requires the event, and inside that event there has to be payload value. Either it could be hello or goodbye or something else. Okay, so I need to set that here. Okay, so which section will help me and which operation will help me? The set event operation will help me and behavior section will help, because this is the section will get executed first. Okay, so set event, let's bring this guys over here. Okay, one more thing very important, in this Munit test case you can use all processes which we use in our Mule flow. I can go ahead, I can use set payload, I can use transform, I can use all the processes which are we generally use in designing our flow, implementing our flow. Okay, hope that is clear. Okay, in the set event, you can go ahead set payload, you can set attributes, you can set errors, you can set variables. Right now we are going to set the payload, incoming payload basically. That payload will be used by this flow to execute. Let's go ahead and we'll say here, hey, set the event and set the payload. Now value, if you look at the value, now very carefully, I am going to say, I don't want to hard code anything here. I say you go ahead and take the value from this guy. Okay, I'll say, why can't we copy the name? I don't want to do any spelling mistakes. Input. This will be the value for, no. Control V. Now I'm saying, okay, boss, you go ahead and take the value for input payload from this property. Okay, is that clear? I need this has to be always try to give a string. Okay, so it should be text and plain. Okay, so these two things we have configured at the set event. Save everything. Now once you configure the input payload, okay. Now what we are going to do? What we are going to do is we are going to check assert equal. Come on, yes, equal. Now we'll check the payload, which will be generated by this guy payload, and this has to be equal to whom? Equal to whom? The payload which is there where?
Inside event.
Inside this file, right?
Okay, yeah.
Expected payload, this one.
Yep.
Okay, come here. Again, we'll say $, control V, and this one. And if those are not matching, we'll generate the message saying that payload was not matched. Okay.
Don't we write here the fx here? in expected? Don't we need to do that?
If you're doing that, then we need to change the pattern. You need to use the property, how to read that property, right? In the data view, how we read the property from there, we don't need here. Okay, so if you go do that, right, then we need to say this something like this. Okay, if you remember property function and then in single code, we need to do something like this. Single code and remove that like this. Okay, I don't want to use that. I'll go back, Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, Control. Okay, dollar curly bracket, Control V, curly bracket. Looks fine, everything.
Yeah.
Now have a look at it. What will happen? Right now I said, oh, go ahead and get the value from there. Go ahead and compare that value with this expected payload. But how this test flow will connect this file? That connection I didn't make. Okay. So that connection we need to make here. Global element, there is a Munit configuration here. Edit it and see here parameterizations file. If I give this file, then only my flow will understand, hey, I don't need to read this or check the hard-coded value. There is a parameterized file. You go there and check for the test. That is what will happen here now. So it will go this flow, this test case. Okay, this test case will look at this file and say that, hey, there is this test, and this test. Earlier we had 4 tests. Now this 3 will get added. 7 tests will be running now. Right click on flow, say a minute, run test. Have a look at it. What happens? Let's look at a minute. This is also old result. Now we'll be having 7. See, not 7. Yeah, actually, I think these are test suits only, all. But inside the test suits, we have in one of the test suite, I think we have 3 test cases. And these are the new 3. Okay, I think I have total. We have 7. Let's have a look at it. So this is happy. This is happy. All 3 are happy. 11. 11. Okay, I know why this happened. Okay, see, I thought of creating this separately. Remember? Now what happens? Let me show you. Okay. So in this test suite, I have configured this. Remember? Now this test suite will go and for each test, it will run 3 times. Okay, it will run 3 times. That's what happened. Okay, so I supposed to create this separate test suite. Okay, we'll do that. I can go ahead and say, but if you remember now, let's have the code coverage. It's 90%. See, it's covered. If I go to multiple routes now, see, all the processes are covered.
Okay.
Now the advantage of this guy is I don't need to change my test case now. If I want to add any test case over here, right? So let's fix this first. Let's count. So we have 2 tests here, and if I go here, 1 test. Here I have 1 test, so it's 3. If I go here, I have 1 test over here, right? So 4, and let's delete this from here. Delete it. Right click and say new Munit test. New test will be created and we'll give a name here. Delete. I'll say choice of 3 paths hyphen. Okay, and which flow we are targeting? Which flow we are targeting? This one, only this. Go ahead and create separate. Okay, and can I go ahead and delete the flow from there? I think it's deleted. Only 2 states are there. Save everything. Go to this flow. Munit, drag the set event over here. In the set event, go to payload and uh, the properties this, control C, come back here, say dollar, curly bracket, okay, curly bracket, control V, curly bracket, okay. Media type has to be plain text,
Text.
okay. So save everything. Now go back to my this guy and now assert equal here payload, okay, and
$.
dollar curly bracket
Expected payload.
expected payload, control C, go here, control V, curly bracket, and if it is not matching, we'll say payload did not match as expected. Clear? Now
Yeah.
save everything. Okay, and if I go ahead and add, we have seen that it executed for multiple test scenarios. And now if I go ahead and say right click on project and Munit run test. Now this time it has to be proper, not like this. So now it's perfect. Now have a look at it, right? So we have a multiple root suite, multiple simple flow, and we have choice of this. Nine. Now, what mistake I did? Any idea? I didn't go to the global element. I didn't configure this. I need to tell that. Go ahead and configure this. Save this. Okay. Now, in this flow, I have 2 tests. In this flow, if I go here, I have 1 test, but this test will be running for these 3 tests. So 2 plus 3, 5. 2 plus 3, 5. And this is 6. And this is 7. So since in this flow, the global element was configured and it was having this file, now how to delete this? Yes, delete it. Okay. Save everything. Now the right picture will come. So since that flow was configured with the parameters file, it was running for those 3 test cases. Now it will be very clear picture, 7 tests only. Okay. Cleared. So some linking got broken. Okay, looks like that. See, no value present. Something went wrong. Okay. Parameterize. This is fine. Edit. Parameterize. This is okay. Global element. This is empty. Yeah, I know that something went wrong here because we have configured earlier and then we have removed it. Okay. So what I'm going to do is delete this test for now. Okay. Delete this. Also, if anything is creating problem, delete this. We are going to test only our flow. Okay. Clear?
Okay.
Yeah. So perfect. Right click, run Munit test suite. They should not create any problem. So this has to run. Only one test is there. It has to run 3 times. Now have a look at it. It picks up 3 times. And my intention is to show you. I'm not going to touch now test case. Whatever code I have written here, I'll simply go to this file and add one more test, and that will automatically pick up my test suite and it will run those many times. See, this is happy now. In meanwhile, it will get happy. All 3 parts will be happy. See, all 3 are happy. Now, what advantage I'm getting with this parameterized query, parameterized Munit? I'll go ahead and simply add one more test here. Simply, okay, Control V, and this time we'll say this is you need to follow YAML syntax properly. Okay, so let's say empty, 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 empty. I'll say empty payload. Okay, and here we'll set that. Control C. This will be empty. Okay, and we'll say this is empty. Okay, so input is empty, expected payload is empty. Okay, save this. Save everything. Go to run this. I didn't change anything over here, right? I just added one test scenario over there. Now see, automatically it picked up the empty payload. Right?
Yep.
Okay. So that's all from this session. Okay. And let me recap what we have done. We have set the goal. Remember, we have set this goal and we said that we'll go and we'll configure our flow for the multiple test cases, and those test cases will be executed successfully for multiple scenarios, and it will show us the coverage report so that we'll make sure that, hey, whatever in our applications, that code is reachable, you know. And then we have seen UI where we'll be able to see the green tick mark on the processes which are executed as part of that testing. Okay, and if you clearly see, we have just touched our box, we have not touched any other box. Okay, so this is called unit testing.
Hmm.
Clear?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, that's all from this session. Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Thanks for this.